I think there's often too many people that are copying someone else, and I don't know. I go back to your traditions and also move forward. But be original and be yourself, and in my mind, keep the audience in mind.
And there's a way to innovate and incorporate modern stuff in with the roots and still be true to the genre. And then there's certain ways where it's not true to the genre.
Welcome to the Musician Mondays podcast, hosted by your boy John Mike, where we hit those relevant topics for musicians, creatives, engineers, and producers of the like. We do interviews, all of those good things like that. The Musician Mondays podcast season 3 starts right now. What's going on with you guys? You know who it is. It's your boy John Mike, and welcome back to Musician Mondays. Boys and girls, we do these every Monday morning. We hit you guys with the content, so you know how it always goes. I always say this at the beginning. You know, for most of us musicians, our week does not begin until Friday. You know, because we got the gigs, we got the church, we got Saturday morning rehearsal. Then you're hitting the gig on Saturday night, then you're getting up on Sunday morning, and you're going in and you're doing all of the church gigs. You're doing 2 and 3 services. You're catching a nap in between, hitting the night service, and then you're done for the day and you're back home and you're sleeping. You get up and Monday begins your weekend, and so I'm here to bring you the content. So check this out, guys. I have a special episode for you guys today. I will not actually be the interviewer in this particular video, neither will I be the interviewee. I have actually 3 special guests that's going to feature on the podcast today, and that is my guy Kevin Kelly, the world-renowned and 2 world-renowned mix engineers, Yosh and Jon Blass. They are like world-renowned gospel mixing engineers. They have easily, between the 2 of them, mixed at least 60 to 70% of all gospel in the last like 20 years. So this is a pretty big deal. We were in Nashville about 2-3 months ago, and we got a chance to sit down with them and do an interview, and it's going to be facilitated by my guy Kevin Kelly. We were doing some recording down there on Yosh Drum Warehouse Volume 2, which just dropped this past Friday. I'm going to talk about that in a minute. You know, I'm going to jump in and give you a little bit segment, but we're going to get into this interview. I wanted to drop it for you guys because it's a really dope conversation, and I think it warrants you guys taking a listen to it. So without further ado, we're going to jump straight into the interview.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is an awesome pleasure to do this, to be with 2 of my favorite people, engineers, and get to just have a conversation that we've actually talked about before. We were going to do it on Clubhouse, but we didn't get to do it yet. So maybe this will be the preamble to that. But anyway, thank you, John Mike, for Gospel Producers and having us here to do this. And let's just talk to these 2 gentlemen here, Yosh and Jon Blass. If you don't happen to know who they are phenomenal engineers, mixing, tracking. They have a long tenure in gospel music and other musical styles, I'm sure, of course. But we're talking about gospel primarily today. And this gentleman here, I would say, is the predecessor to us doing what we're doing. And he's had a just magnanimous impact on gospel music as we know it. You may not know the name, but you may know some of the songs that he's mixed and presented for us to hear, learn, and cherish over the years. So let's kind of start with Yosh. Thank you for being here with Gospel Producers. And hey, how you doing?
Good. Doing fine. What's going on?
Well, let's kind of talk about the career a little bit, just a little bit. My personal first expose to you was through Sanchez Harley, or at least one of my first ones. And Chaz would always say, man, you got to get Yosh. You got to get Yosh.
I didn't even liar.
So, of course, I didn't even know your first name because he kept calling you Yosh. He never called you John. Of course, I didn't know how to spell it. I thought it was Yosh versus Jazzcz, I believe is the correct spelling.
That's pretty good.
So, yeah, I try to get my ABCs together. So anyway, you've had just amazing career. Mixing music, but gospel's has been great.
Okay, so here's a little aside here. So I met this guy in New Orleans, and how old were you?
I don't remember.
20 years old?
Yeah, maybe.
22?
No, it's older than that.
Okay, 23.
That was our second meeting, I think, actually.
And he's in the middle of recording what was it, Bishop?
We did the Bishop Morton record together.
Bishop Morton's record.
Yeah.
And he has to deal with Kurt Carr and Bishop Morton when he's a young guy. It was amazing. Like
2006.
He had everything going on at this live recording, and we got the live recording going. And then when we finished the live recording, he had to record all the overdubs, and you were recording a 002 or something. What was it?
I brought my brother's 12-inch PowerBook Mac, a Digi 002, and a Mackie 16-channel mixer.
And we just set him up in a room.
We did the same.
And he just started recording, and he dealt with a really good producer and handled it really well for never really doing it like that before. He had experience doing stuff up in
St. Louis.
St. Louis, but to have to deal with that that was amazing. Like I was so impressed, because if I was 23 and I was thrown into that, I don't know what would have happened.
It was definitely a moment to cut teeth. Just to give you the backstory, we did the live recording. I was the live sound engineer, monitor overseeing that part, even overseeing production, backline, and then recording dubs. In the sanctuary, we even had a rock room that we transitioned into.
So we set up a makeshift studio for you, basically, so you could do lead vocals and then choir out in the church.
Yeah, I did that, and the bishop did his overdubs in the office.
Yeah,
it
was good.
Yeah.
So, anyways, this guy's amazing. So I'm done.
So again, but our first meeting was actually at a GMWA. You were recording with Women of Worship for Sanchez.
Okay.
In the truck. I think it was you and Dave.
Dave.
Yeah, Dave from Watermark.
Yep.
I think it was his truck, but you were the engineer at the time.
Dave Habinger.
Yeah. So, but man, like I said, going back to mixing, let's talk about Benson and the Dan Cleary Cloudburst days. Yeah, I should not know that, right?
Wow.
I remember, like I said, Sanchez talking about you, but I would see your name on these records, like with Carmen commissioning the Christ Church Choir album. I think there was like all the Hezekiah Walker stuff. I don't know if you did all of it, but the one that sticks out.
Randy Poole did some of that.
And we happened to be at the pool room.
And we're at the pool room in Randy
Absolutely.
Poole. So how that happened was, I lived in Detroit, and I worked with Commissioned and a lot of other people, a lot of Detroit people, and before that, P-Funk and Bootsy Collins and all that. But we were probably like on the 6th or 7th commissioned album when I met Dan Cleary from Nashville. Well, Fred's or Commission's record company was in Nashville, and they always wanted us to come to Nashville to mix. And we're like, we're not going to Nashville. Like, who would go to Nashville to mix when you're in Detroit? Like, we don't mix this kind of music, and they don't mix music like this in Nashville. And I'm like, because for my generation, Nashville was about hee-haw. You guys don't even know what that show is. Yeah. But we were prejudiced against Nashville people. And honestly, we really were. And so I wouldn't go mix there. We were mixing in Detroit and Detroit studios. And but then one day, this guy, Dan Cleary, comes from Nashville. He's an A&R guy for Fred and Commission. And he goes, man, I need you. He came to the studio, and he was actually doing some project, which the project you were just talking about. What was it?
The Commission, Christ Church.
Yeah. And we tracked all the stuff with Commission. And then he made me come back to Nashville and mix the stuff. And of course, as soon as I got here, I fell in love with this town immediately. It was like instantaneous. I was wrong. It just goes to show you, you don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
And I was introduced to this incredible studio system here at the time. It still exists, but not like it did back then, where we worked from studio to studio to studio, setting up mix situations every 10 to 12 days in different studios. And we got to learn, myself and my assistant, to learn all these different consoles. Like one day you're working on SSL, next day next month you're working on Neve, whatever, or an API. And so it was an incredible educational experience going from Detroit to here.
Sure.
In Detroit, it was more, I got my chops going with tracking and then mixing, and then coming here was another whole new thing where you explored people and gear and made relationships. So That's all I got to say about that.
So let's go further into gospel. Like I said, I mentioned Hezekiah Walker, even the Live in Toronto record, which was a horrendous story as y'all had that happening for the travel part.
Yeah, there was a blizzard.
Right.
Yeah.
So trying to get there was crazy. So even to present day gospel, and I think this is where we can kind of involve Blass going forward, because of course you developed a sound, and you weren't the only sound in gospel, but in my opinion, and I can go on record saying it, I think you are definitely one of the most robust sounds that happened, one that really stuck out. I think there's a difference between artistic parts, like where the artist is what they're doing, and the sonics are different. And so I think there was always a difference in the sonics when I heard a record that you mixed. Like I said, I'll go back to How Much We Can Bear. That's a song that people sang for years. It was on the Hezekiah Walker it's a New York studio record, actually. It was By Any Means, I believe it was what it was called. But just hearing the sopranos come out of the left speaker, altos out of the right speaker, and the tenors in the middle saying how much we and the choir joins together we can bear. That was a cool thing. I was just playing drums. I wasn't really mixing, but I just thought, man, this is different. Like, it felt like Star Wars, something happening, things coming out of different places popping out. And then, of course, over the years, you changed that nomenclature.
Yeah, but whenever there's a situation like that, I'll end up handing it back out again.
Yeah.
If they're answering, call and answer, I'll definitely do that still.
Yeah. So you've, like I said, gone from boards, SSL, API, maybe Neve or whatever the case is, integrating Pro Tools, digital means, and having assistants to help you get through this process. So how did you and Jon Blass meet?
Oh, Jon Blass was in college.
I was, yeah.
And he got a hold of this, of Nicole Cochran, who she was a kind of like my manager or something, that type of person who took care of all bookings. And he said, hey, can I come and intern for Yosh? Right?
Yep.
Is that what happened?
Yep, that's exactly what happened.
And I said, who is this guy? He's from where, Michigan? What city was that?
Allegan.
Allegan, Michigan.
Yeah.
And I'm like,
Cool.
Yep.
no way. No. I said, sure. And he came up to Nashville.
Yeah.
And I threw him into the fire like the first week. We went to do Hezekiah Walker, right? Pretty much.
That was, one of the first things we did was we went up to Philly to do a Hezekiah Walker record. Mm-hmm. And then we flew down to Texas to do a Kurt Carr record.
We did all in one weekend, like
my
pretty much
God.
like 3 or 4 days.
And you said I was good. He's the guy.
And it was fun. We did that, and then we came back to Nashville, and he hung out and interned that summer.
Yeah.
And then you went back to school, finished school, and then came back up, and then we started working together in 2009,
Yeah,
10-ish.
beginning of 10, yeah.
Yeah, beginning of 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then we did that for 4 years, I guess.
So how was that experience interning? I mean, I can't imagine that first being thrown in the fire thing. Like I said, I had one album. You had two with two major artists. That's nuts. So
It was having someone like Yosh, manage your intern was honestly it's an incredible experience. He was generous enough to let me into every part of his process. And sometimes that meant I was sitting in the back of the room on my laptop cleaning out tom tracks for a live record. Sometimes that meant I was just sitting next to him learning what a kick drum's supposed to sound like. And he just let me be with him the whole time. And that's a huge investment on his part. It's a sacrifice for him to take me on trips, like to do the Hezekiah record and to do the Kurt record. And it's an investment on his part to invite me into his space, into his process, into all of that. And he put himself out and let me do that. And when he had a day that was, if he thought it was going to be boring or he had the day off or whatever it was, he called his friends and said, hey, can my guy come hang out with you? And so I hung out with Randy Poole, and I hung out with some producer friends of his, and I got all kinds of experiences and relationships because of his willingness to be such a great intern leader. Yeah.
it goes to my earlier statement. Some of my favorite people, not just musicians, because I know musicians, engineers, we have some that are really, really nice, and some we'd rather not be around. So it's just cool that the persona is like just as cool.
But the thing was, is with Jon, he always stepped up to the plate. I'd say, hey man, you need to go record this piano for Mano Haynes over at the studio in downtown Franklin. And he'd look at me like, okay. And he had never even been in the studio before, and he just went in there and set it up and got it going and recorded it.
Yeah.
And then brought the files back, because then you had to walk the files back to the studio or drive them.
Yeah.
The internet was so slow, you couldn't even move files around that way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But so he stepped up to the plate. And, you know, I've always tried to help people out from the ground up, you know, when they start out. Still doing that. In Arizona, I'm still doing it.
I'm a witness.
I've got an intern in Arizona now, and he's great too. He's stepping up to the plate all the time. He's
So I got to tell you,
doing all that dirty work now.
That's-
cleaning out those toms and things.
It's something you got to learn, right?
man,
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like cutting your teeth, rites of passage kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm kind of jealous of you, Grant Green, Chris Yoakum, because you guys got to be interns. I had to watch it from afar and just try to guess. So I'll never forget playing one of my brother's albums for you at the house. And I was nervous. It was like playing Michael Jordan in basketball and like just knowing I was going to get stomped. And when he said, dude, I like this, I'm like, okay, you have to find something wrong with this. I mean, you know, but it was just really cool that, you know, again, you've been open. I'll say now you've kind of got some generations outside of you, because now, because of your investment, we look at people like Blass, and man, I'll say it, I might be wrong, but between you two, like over half of the gospel music genre is being touched by your hands alone. I mean,
Well,
we
hopefully
talk
it'll be more touched by you in the future.
Hey, hopefully so.
Yeah.
You know, and well, let's talk about that. We've actually appeared on the same album a couple times now.
Yeah.
I think the Diamond Clerk and a Different Song album. And even though engineers don't get awards, we won a Stellar. So that was pretty cool. It's cool to be in the conversation with you guys, because to go from reading your names to getting to know the people and then being able to share these moments is just priceless. So, so even talk about the transition. So of course you were an intern.
Yeah.
And now I'll just speed way down the highway. Some of the clients you had and you were interning for now have become your clients, even without presence of Yosh. So how's that been, even for working with the artists, the clients? You know, was it the same? Was it a little different? What things did you find differently about that process?
Was it the same? It's a totally different experience.
Yeah.
When you're
not
thrown
being-
in,
right,
when you're thrown into the sea.
when you're the guy in charge,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Totally different experience. And there were some records when Yosh gave me more responsibility than others, and so like, he's been in this game long enough to know how to groom an assistant to get more responsibility and to learn more things, and so that prepares you in some respects for that.
Yeah.
And in some respects, you got to figure it out, and it takes years.
Yeah.
And I'm still figuring it out.
We all are. Yeah.
But it's a great experience. I'm honored anytime anyone calls me for work, especially if
As
they're-
I am, still.
Yes, we all are.
At my old gray age, but people still
Man.
call me.
Yeah. And I'm fortunate to share some clients of Yosh's, and I'm fortunate to get on some records that he is also mixing, and I'm really thankful for that every time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think you all have one shared person in common, Adam Smith.
Yeah.
I think Adam preps some things for you and for you as well sometimes.
Well, Adam became my assistant after John. Actually, Adam interned for us in 2011, then became the assistant in 2014.
Yeah.
And then he's been with me ever since. And now there's a guy named Clifton Graham in Arizona, and he's doing some of Adam's share.
Yeah.
Adam still prepares sessions and things for
Yeah.
me. Well, all brilliant people, way smarter than I am. These guys are geniuses. Apple geniuses, I might add. In fact, did you know
They both
Adam
are,
was
yeah.
an Apple genius, and so is Clifton.
Yep.
I always stay with the geniuses. That's
gotta
my
take-
my.
That's smart.
That's what
Smart
I
decisions.
Yes. Yeah.
So let me ask you this. I mean, of course, you guys, between you two, have mixed a bunch of albums, singles, everything else. How do you feel about where gospel's going now in terms of the creative part / things that'll be sustainable? I mean, you've always talked about it. I'm sure you share the same opinion. It starts with a great song.
Yeah.
And there are times that I've seen you, dare I say, from the back end, produce after the production is done to help make some of those decisions that will make the song even greater. So even from that nomenclature of a great song, where do you see gospel going now? You've had multiple repeat clients, songs, sonics are changing or not. What do you think?
Well, sonics aside, I just wish gospel would go back to its roots.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need to do all this other. It's a genre that goes deep into the deepness of the South and of black music, and I don't like it when it gets homogenized by other kinds of music. So my favorite music is when it's real gospel music and it's heartfelt and comes from the Delta, man.
I get it.
You know.
Yeah.
So, or from the inner city of Detroit or wherever, you know,
Yeah.
Chicago, Philadelphia,
Yeah.
New York City, Los Angeles. You know, it's all, that's what I like to listen to and what I like to mix.
Mm-hmm.
So don't fire me, you know, but some people may fire me right now, but that's okay.
Yeah.
But I just love when it gets down deep in your soul and you feel, you know, the Spirit of the Lord in that music, because you don't always feel it when it's homogenized and pasteurized. That's my opinion right now. So
Yeah.
I just want to let you know.
Cool. What do you think, John?
I think getting back to the roots is a good way to put that. Authenticity is how I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what grabs you, I guess. I think there's often too many people that are copying someone else, and I don't know. I go back to your traditions and also move forward. But be original and be yourself. And in my mind, keep the audience in mind. That's who you're making these records for. So know your audience and think about how they're going to listen to the record.
And there's a way to innovate and
Yes.
incorporate modern stuff in with
Yes.
the roots and still be true to the genre.
Yeah.
And then there's certain ways where it's not true to the genre.
The idea isn't to never change. The idea is to maintain the tradition and innovate it and move forward. Yeah, absolutely.
So I kind of function a little differently than you guys, a little bit, because I'm on sometimes the player side of the recording, and then I get to join you guys on the post part, the mixing and editing part of the recording. And so for me, that just rings so true. I think a lot of times people chase what they think success is.
Yes.
And that's for the copying part. And sometimes it could be, imitation is flattery sometimes, but as my pastor, Bishop Walker says, Joseph Walker says, God anoints originals, not copies. Mm-hmm. And so I think a lot of times we lose that essence, as you just said it. Sometimes I think when it comes to mixing, don't you just love seeing about 160 tracks coming at you? Very, 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 very not true. But I think that's part of the homogenizing that happens, thinking that more equals better. And I think sometimes an old adage I've heard is less is more.
It's definitely less is more.
Yeah.
Your tracks will be way bigger the least amount of tracks you use.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, there's one thing, a certain part of a song can get really, really big, on purpose by making it thicker or whatever with layers, but there has to be space. If there's no space, then it doesn't feel as good. It's just not going to feel great.
All right, let me jump in here real quick, guys, with a quick sponsored segment. So we just released Yosh Warehouse Volume 2, boys and girls, and I'm really excited to show it to you today and present it to you guys today. We went in real deep on this one. We sampled over 13 brand new snares. We sampled 3 new kits, like full kits, the kick. We got toms. We even threw in your 8-inch, your 10-inch, we threw in an 18-inch tom. So we got some big nice sounding toms on here that you guys were asking for. We also sampled a vintage 1970s Ludwig birch kit. It sounds amazing. It's in the pack and you can check it out. We got Yosh to sit down and create presets for Trigger for us. And it's really, really dope. It's really, really amazing. And you get the opportunity to actually hear some of Yosh's favorite combinations with these snares and these kicks that we have. So right now we're doing a special intro price of only $79.99, and that is only to this Friday, boys and girls. So you have your opportunity to get it at a low low price, and it goes back up to like $99.99. You can also get the bundle of Volume 1 and Volume 2 for only $149, and these are the best sounding drum samples on the internet, period. Not lying to you. I promise you, the proof is in the pudding. You can take your drums from sounding like this to sounding like this. So go grab it now. The link is down in the description of this video, and get the best drums of your life.
So I'll tie this in. We happen to be at the pool room, Randy Pool Studio, and we're tracking the Yash's Drum Warehouse Part 2. I happen to be the drummer. Hope they don't fire me.
He's the man.
So I think the running joke, I even talked to Dance Ray one time, and he said, yeah, you're making my records now. I've never been hired to play, but maybe the samples are making it. But let's talk about the innovation of, once again, the innovation of adding samples to records. Kind of what's the point and purpose of it? Some people say, I want to have the real blood of the drums, but what's your normal your thoughts about it?
I mean, normally I try to, depending on how well the drums are recorded, I try to start with the natural drums and then just complement those drums with samples. If the drums are not recorded well, or they're really just terrible choices as far as the drums that they picked for the song, then you may have to make the sample more prevalent. But most of the time I try to get all the attack from the original kick and snare and toms and everything, and then just try to complement with it, so that, because especially when there's a really dense mix, you have to figure out a way to punch through that mix with the drums without the drums being super loud. So that's what samples do, because they can stretch out the length of a snare without a ton of reverb or whatever, and still, if you work hard enough, you can make it sound fairly natural. I've not always been successful at that. I admit it. You guys can, criticize me. That's fine. But I try, and most people don't realize how some of the tracks arrive at my destination. So we're constantly trying to figure out how to give the best product, even if it's done on a low budget, before it ever got to me. But anyways, that's what I do, with samples. It's like a philosophy of trying to get the most out of the original drums and then make the track grow with samples. And once in a while, we don't use any samples. So
how do you feel about it, John? I mean,
I it's all driven by the song, right? Sometimes I think a more sample-y sound is what's asked for and what's required. I generally think of samples as another tool, another EQ. Like I start with the original and say, what is it missing? And then how do I get that? Sometimes that's compression or an EQ, and sometimes that's a sample. It's just another way to get to the destination. And sometimes that's the best tool, and sometimes it's not. And that just totally depends on what the issue is that we're trying to solve. So I think it all always comes back to the why are you doing it? Neither of us are adding samples because, hey, we like samples, right? We're adding samples because we're trying to solve a problem, and trying to get this record to cut through on the radio and to hit you in the face like you want it to.
Yeah, it's definitely just another tool.
Think about another record. We happened to appear on a record for Sam Franklin. The record was called The Free Project.
Yes.
I think you mixed I Choose Free.
Yes.
And Set My Feet. That was the radio single, I believe. Set My Feet on the Rock.
Sounds familiar.
I want to say but so again, I was involved on the front end at the recording session, and I wasn't even supposed to be there first, but it just so happened I was there. And Derek Stevenson did a great job recording what was there. But when I heard the album, I'm like, Blass did his thing. And I can tell musically, like, the foundation was pretty cool and was there. And I was involved in some of the pre-stuff prior to you, even recording some overdubs. But I mean, those samples helped. And they really shaped a sound that made it more robust than it would have been given that happened that night. So I definitely understand what you're saying.
Sometimes a great recording of a kick drum is just too long, too poofy. Sometimes it's got a ton of tick and no low end. Sometimes just the way they have the inside and the outside mics just don't work together. No matter how you flip the phase, you're either losing something in the middle or you're using something at the bottom, and there's just no way to get that bottom end and like short, punchy bottom end out of it.
Sure.
So you got to help it out some. So,
Absolutely.
Yeah, but the goal is always to respect the drummer, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
What I'm trying to do is make the drummer live his best life, shine his brightest.
Yeah.
So it's never a disrespect to an engineer or a drummer. I'm just trying to make them sound the best they can. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, guys, look, we've had this great conversation. I'm not going to make it longer. We can get into other questions later. If you were to ask who's your favorite artist, you have a bunch of them. So I dare not even try to ask that.
Good.
You know, I know some people want to hear
Stevie Wonder.
Right.
Is that okay?
Right. Someone wants to ask, what's your favorite mix? You probably have a ton of them. And to be honest with you, you probably have a ton that you didn't like, because we work for, and I mean didn't like in terms of it wasn't my preference how it went out, because you told me something and it's like totally delivered me out of life. You said when you mix an album, mix a song, you're mixing for the producer and for the artist, and it's really theirs. And so your first opinion is really it. You get a first opinion after that. You know, you get repeat work because you make them feel good about the experience, and it's their vision. So you guys have been very good at doing that. You want to say something?
No, I don't. Just don't ask me who's my favorite artist.
No.
What's my favorite mix?
No,
Because I
would
tell you.
You know,
Because I don't have any favorite mixes.
I
Randy
tell
Poole's
you.
mixes are always better than mine.
Than all of us.
And so are John's. So I'm always trying to do better.
In my little experience,
Likewise.
I tell people every song is my favorite till I'm finished at least. And when I'm finished, at least I've given it my best toward it, and everyone should be representative of what you want to do and make other people shine. So
When you come back to the mix a month later, it's no longer your favorite. You want to change it all.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Every single one.
yeah,
Yeah.
and like I said, but it's never ours totally. It's the artist, it's the producer.
Yep.
It's everything, you know, it's the whole comprising of everybody. So we talked about the fact of dense mixes. We talked about the fact of making the drummer sound good with samples. And we talked about sometimes less being more. So with that being the case, those are pieces of wisdom and things that you do in process. If you had to give some people that are aspiring to become the Yosh, the Jon Blass, great engineers, what would you tell them? Just a couple things that might, you know, 2 pieces of advice that you would give them that may help them along their way.
Well, the first thing is, it's not your record. It's the artist and the producer's record. And you're just there to facilitate their vision. And so no matter what you think it should sound like, you have to get inside their head and figure out what they want it to sound like and try to achieve their goal. And do it in a way where they feel good about what you're doing and you feel good about what you're doing, and just be cordial and get the job done, because it's not your record as an engineer. It's you have to make a lot of people. There's more, in fact, there's more than just the artists and the producers. There's all the other, there's record people, whatever, and you have to figure out a way to make it sound big and beautiful. And then you can, and you still have, you may have to make a compromise to what you really think should be the best sound, but it's still going to come out great no matter what. Like if it's a good record, if it's a great song and it's a great production, it's going to come out great, whether you think the kick drum should be louder or not, you know.
Sure.
But you got to make the client happy. So that's my goal, is to make a client happy, not myself completely happy. I got to be happy, but not. It's the client that's most important.
Yeah, it's like you told me, man. It's theirs.
Yeah.
So I agree.
But they're also coming to you for your skills and your artistry.
Yeah.
And so it's always a weird balance.
Yeah.
And you invest yourself into it. And as much as you have to detach because it's not your baby,
Yeah.
You're the nanny and you care about that baby.
And you're helping to birth it.
Definitely.
You hand it back to the parent.
Always
Yeah.
be aware
Right.
of that,
Yeah.
because the producers and the artists, they're like having a baby. Like they're nervous about it, you know, always.
Yeah, but you're helping to birth it. So yeah, you're
We're
part
just
of the process.
we're part of the birthing center.
Yeah, right.
Yes.
So anything you would add to that or different from that maybe?
Certainly not different from that. I think piece of advice for younger engineers to me is make yourself useful throughout the process. It's sort of, I mean, everything from the basics of just make the client happy, it's customer service, to when you're the young one, the assistant, the intern, if you're not useful, you're not going to be there anymore. And that's something I learned through my internship with Yosh, and something he guided me as I went back to school. I mean, during that Hezekiah Walker record, one of the first things we did together, I was an assistant, and I was an intern, and we had all kinds of line issues, mic cables, things like that. So this was patched into this, into this, into this, into this, and I got on my computer and make it a spreadsheet and like label it so we knew what it was.
Yeah.
And suddenly I had provided some value to the situation. And when that had nothing to do with audio, right?
Sure.
That's basic Excel skills or whatever.
Yeah.
And yet that was what the situation needed. And likewise, when I was going back to school, your advice was learn how to tune vocals.
Yeah.
And
because you'll be really useful.
Yeah. And I don't know,
he
all
just
that
dug
went
right
your
into it,
decisions,
man,
but,
and
yeah.
he was like flying after about couple months.
Yeah. You gave me opportunities while I was at school. You sent me
Yeah.
stuff and said, "Hey, can you tune this?" And I tuned it and sent it back. And
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to those, if he fixed them or what, but he
we
provided opportunities for me to learn and to invest in a skill that he knew was going to be useful.
Yeah.
And that was incredibly valuable to me as an intern, as a young assistant, as someone who was trying to build relationships and find my way in this industry.
Reminds me of a statement that a guy named Chris Watkins said. He said, "You're most valuable when you're most versatile."
Mm-hmm.
And you just said it well, be available. And I think sometimes engineers, some, not you all, can be like, I'm just this. But when you're humanistic and you're caring, compassionate about the process, it makes everybody feel good.
Yeah.
And those kinds of things evolve. I think sometimes you need to be a jack of all trades and need to figure it out, and sometimes you need to niche down a little bit and stay focused on what you do and do it well. So yeah.
Great words. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Great time with Jon Blass and Jon Yosh. Take care.
Peace out.